Welcome to the Land Broker Insider Podcast, your real estate masterclass. Casey Mock and his team are ready to dig into the proven models and systems that have propelled Mock Ranches to nearly $1 billion in Texas real estate sales, and to be recognized twice as an Apex Land Broker of the Year. This is where we don't earn the right to learn. Here we learn together, so we have the right to earn. The Land Broker Insider Podcast starts right now.
Schuyler Williamson, welcome to the show. Schuyler is a leadership expert, is an entrepreneur. He's a decorated military veteran who's consistently achieved the top and highest levels in both business and service to our country. Schuyler's the author of the new book, The Steady Leader, Leadership Models That Bring Clarity to Chaos. Schuyler provides actionable strategies for leading through uncertainty, drawn from his experience as a Bronze Star Medal recipient and combat officer with deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. Schuyler was at the top of his class at West Point, and he earned an MBA from University of Texas McCombs School of Business. He consistently ranks in the top 1% of real estate agents nationwide, with hundreds of millions of dollars in sales and ownership of over 50 investment properties. Schuyler is the founder of multiple successful businesses, and he leads the Corporate Battlefield Mastermind group, which I've attended, helping high achievers build wealth and leadership. Most importantly, what I know about Schuyler from about a decade of working with him, Schuyler loves Jesus, he loves his family, and he's one of the finest men I've ever had the privilege of working around. Schuyler, welcome to the show, bud.
Thank you, man. I'm grateful to be here, and I do love Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, Raj to that, right?
Let's just get the easy work out of the way, right?
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. What have you been up to, man? What's it like writing a book?
Well, shoot, man, it's a journey, and it's like any other project. As soon as you think you got it pinned down and killed, it jumps back up and runs away from you. I was blessed to have a team that was helping me put it together. I mean, you know Gracie, and then I have some others that are really talented people as a part of the team. And I don't know, I think in all it took about 2 years from start to finish. And now we've got the end zone in sight. And it's just all about pushing, right? I mean, we've got a published date, and not a lot of people know this, and I certainly didn't know this until I started this. But if you want to have a bestseller, they measure it week by week, and all of your pre-sales go into that first week's worth of sold books. And so, if you're going to be a bestseller, it's got to happen the first week.
It's got to happen quick, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Why so many people have a big rollout book tour. I guess a book tour with pre-sales and all, it's a big part of it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And we're hustling. I mean, we're trying to do a bunch of speaking opportunities, and certainly, I'm a sales guy, so I'm working my database and some other avenues. So it's, we're not leaving any rock unturned. That's for sure, my friend. That's
the value of actually running a database, which so many small business entrepreneurs don't do. We have this tendency to operate, as an entrepreneur, not as a purposeful business. We call it E to P in our space, right? So many people get stuck in E, and it's just waking up every day, kind of intuitively thinking about what to do, and a lot of reaction,
Yep.
But, they don't call first responders. They're not called first reactors. They're called first responders, because when there is emergency, they know how to respond in a tactful way, in a calculated way, in a way that's proven to succeed in that scenario, But in business, we think, especially as the owners, a lot of times we think we're the first reactors. We're the firefighters in every scenario. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's not a recipe for success. Certainly if you're going for the highest average, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so much of the book I wrote is about thinking. I mean, I think as leaders, we have a responsibility to be thinkers. And certainly I think that there's a more strategic way to think. But I'll tell you, reacting is not thinking. Responding is taking the time to be a thinker and do things the right way the first time, the best that you can anyways, right? Like we may fail and that's fine, as long as you thought before you acted, just stack it in your
difference in offense and defense, isn't it? As a business owner, are you playing to win or are you playing to not lose?
Oh man.
Big difference, man. Yeah. Somebody comes at you, like, just think about self-defense. Somebody comes at you with a knife or somebody runs at your kid, you're going to intuitively know to go defend the home.
Yeah. Yep.
That's defense. That's defense. Somebody comes at you in business, you're going to intuitively know that I got to defend my business.
Yeah.
But, dude, offense is a strategy.
Yeah. Well,
going and taking territory and growing a business and hiring and planning to scale and managing finances, that's a strategy to go take territory, right?
Well, there's strategy in all of that. I mean, so in the military, you think we didn't have any strategy when we set up our defenses? No, it was chock full of strategy. Actually, I was talking to this a little bit of a tangent here, but I was talking to my kids this morning because I'm reading a book on how the brain operates right now. Again,
what book is that?
It's called Brainwash.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to be an average thinker, Casey. I want to be an exceptional thinker. I want to be excellent in all that I do. And so if I'm going to sit down and have thinking time, I want to understand how my brain works, and I want to deploy it the best that I can. And so I was talking with my kids about the book and trying to persuade them into some of these activities that really wire your brain the right way, if you could optimize it. And my daughter, both my kids are soccer players, and so my daughter, chuckling, she goes, "Well, Daddy, that's why I'm an offensive player." And I said, "Yeah, you're an offensive player because when you came out of your mother's womb, you're just aggressive, right? And on the soccer field, the most aggressive ones are the ones that play offense. Doesn't mean they don't have to play defense. It's just they play defense less." Yeah. And then my son, who is extraordinarily intelligent, is a thinker. It's all he does is think. And he's super athletic, but he plays on defense on his soccer team because he gets it. And not very many kids at 7 years old understand setting up a defense. And so
anticipate where the ball's going to go, anticipate
right.
What the other team's going to do.
Yeah, the old Wade and Gretzky quote, right? And so my son at 7 years old kind of draws a line in the sand, and the other team doesn't get past him because he's got his head on a swivel. He sees what people are trying to do. He never lets anyone get behind him. And at 7 years old, that's hard to teach. They all are aggressive and they want to go kick the ball in the goal. Every once in a while you have the one who understands the defense and how that wins games, and he does it. And so I guess if we would go all the way back to the beginning of the conversation before I went on this rant on this story, in the military, the first thing we do, whether it's offense or defense, doesn't matter. The first thing that we do is what we call analyze the situation. And so we look at the environment, right? Are we in the mountains? Are we in the desert? Is it going to be raining? Are we doing a night patrol, or are we doing a daylight patrol? Are there going to be civilian population around? What is the environment? And then we're going to look at our competition and say, all right, well, what is the composition of our competition? How many people do they have? What assets do they have? You name it, right? And then we're going to look at our team and say, okay, well, how many do we have? What assets do we have to deploy? In this operation, are we going to have helicopter support? Do we have a sniper attached to us? What all assets do we have? And then, only then, after we've analyzed all of that, will we start to plan the actual mission that everybody knows we go and do. And so that situation paragraph, and part of looking at the enemy is, well, what's the most dangerous course of action that could happen here? And then we plan for that. And then we say, what's the most probable course of action? And most of our time planning is spent on the most probable, but we've thought through the most dangerous as well, right? We're ready for that. And so it's a thinking man's game. Even on defense, we're thinking through, all right, what's the most probable way that the enemy's going to attack us with what they have available? All right, well, what's the most dangerous? We're planning for both.
How's that play out, Scott? Give us an example of how that played out in the military, if you can. If you're willing to, like a specific example of how that played out in battle, and then relate that to business directly.
when I was in Afghanistan, there was we had a patrol base that we built, and if you've ever seen any pictures, they're just big, probably 6 by 6 foot, just buckets full of sand, right? They're not buckets, but it's like wire and mesh, and you fill it up with sand, and so we would stack those, kind of like 2 together and then 1 on top. So it'd be about 10 foot high. And then on top of that, we would have barbed wire or something like that to prevent people from climbing over. And we would have that all the way around. And so we had that around ours, and right next to us, the Italians had theirs built out of the exact same thing. But the Italians were responsible for manning theirs, and we were responsible for manning ours, even though we built both sides and even though we were together in the same spot. Make sense?
Yep.
Most probable course of action is they try to shoot some mortar rounds at us. They try to lob an artillery shell into the middle of our camp, and or walk up and throw a grenade over the wall, or they'll try to pick somebody off that's kind of silhouetting too high with a sniper round. That's the most probable. And we trained to that all the time. We had bunkers, we had sirens that would go off if someone shot a mortar round at us. Certainly, we would keep people away from the fence so they couldn't throw a grenade over. And when you're pulling defense, you're at this much over the sight picture at most, right? And so we trained to that every day. The most dangerous course of action is somehow that they were able to drive a vehicle with a bomb inside of it into the front gate and breach our defense, right? That was the most dangerous. We prepared for that too. And it would have been really hard for someone to make that happen, because our soldiers stop people far out. They search the vehicles. That way, if something were to happen, we lose one soldier, but we don't lose a whole base.
Yeah.
Well, the Italians actually were hit with that most dangerous course of action. And, the enemy knew enough about what was going on to know that they were going to attack the Italian side, not the U.S. side. And they were able to breach the Italian base, and the Italians, they weren't able to fight these guys off. In fact, they got in their vehicles and drove through their defense out the back wall to just get away. And so to some extent, the enemy had a foothold in a base right next door to us. And, the short of the story is we went in there and we cleaned it up for the Italians, and then rebuilt their defense for them. But they didn't have their training and kind of positional situations set up to prevent that from happening. It happened so effectively that they essentially demolished the other half of their base getting out the back door to just survive. And so that's a good example of like how a defense came together with training, and then worst case scenario what happened, and and that's that in combat. In business,
how's that relate to business? As CEO of a company and owner of all these assets and investments, you've done a lot. You and I've fought some business battles together.
Yeah.
How's that relate to business, Guy?
Yeah, I'll just use my laundry business as an example, because it's the easiest one for people to understand. I think it gets pretty complicated in real estate, although real estate's more attacked than any other industry out there.
No doubt.
But in the laundry business, when you set up your retail store, there's competition around you, right? And it's like Burger King setting up a mile away from McDonald's. They're competing over that burger, and you price your service according to the competition and your value proposition, but you don't want it so high, the pricing, that the value starts to swing in their direction, right? And so if you're superior in your facility, in your machinery, and in your value proposition as a whole, and you're winning business from your competitor, most unsophisticated competitors, what do they compete on in retail? It's price, right?
Price.
Yeah.
Price.
Yeah, because that's where the unsophisticated business owner goes right to price, and that's how they compete. And so
the uneducated customer goes the same way.
That's right. And I don't listen, we love our customers, but the majority of laundromat customers are low-income earners, and they haven't studied business a whole lot. Now, many of them are business owners, and they're actually pretty street smart, but they haven't read a Harvard Business Review article, or they just haven't spent that time into it, right? They didn't have the money that I had, and I was blessed with, to go to the University of Texas and get my MBA. And so, as I'm sitting here looking at the situation, we're competing on value. I understand that. We're winning business. At the same time, I'm thinking, okay, and that's all offense, right? All of that value proposition game is all offense.
Right.
At the same time, as the business owner, I'm thinking defense. Okay, well, what could ruin my momentum right now? Certainly, it could be a new competitor entering the market that's close to mine, that competes for the same geographic region as me. Certainly, it could be price, right? My existing competitors could cut their prices in half, and I'd have to make a decision. Certainly, they could update their stores and make them maybe nicer than ours, or bolt on another business that's a convenient business, like a dry cleaner or a coffee shop or something like that. There's lots of ways to compete, but what I'm doing is, you were playing chess, right? I'm trying to think, well, what's their next logical move with the assets that they have, the building, the money that I'm guessing they have in the bank, their track record, their clientele. With what they have, what's the most logical next step for them? And if they take that step, I've got two choices, right? When I'm thinking through it, I have two choices. I can either beat them to that, right? If I really think that their most logical step is to add a coffee shop, I can beat them to that and add coffee into my store before them. Or I can let them spend the money and do that, and then I have a planned next step that I'm going to take as soon as they actually take that offensive approach. Make sense? So,
yeah, it does, for sure.
Yeah, so we're playing offense all day long on the value proposition front, but I'm continuously playing defense too. And I think in business books, specifically for entrepreneurs, they call it healthy anxiety, right? Like, what's going to put me out of business? And I'm just thinking about it all the time. So take that thinking one step further. If you're thinking about what could put you out of business, well, what would be the move that you can do before or after that would allow you to survive? And let's just have that in place. And then you decide as a business owner whether I want to do it before or after. But you've thought it through. And so when the competition takes their shot at you, you don't react, right? Because you've thought it through. You respond. Yeah. And your people will follow you so much harder if they see you responding. Better yet, if you tell them, hey, if I were them, this is what I would do. And then they go and do it, watch how your people look at you when you predict what the competition is going to do. I do this all the time with my clients in the sales business. I say, hey, look, this is the offer we're going to make. If I were them, this is the counter that I would make. And I just tell my people right up front, and sure enough, because we played this game, right? Casey, you and I, we've been selling for a little while. Sure enough, they make the counter that we predict. And then our folks, they've been thinking about it since I told them. And they get the ability to respond how they want to because they've already thought it through. And it's not an emotional reaction from them when they see that. I'm like, hey, we talked about this. Of course they reacted this way. It's what I would do if I was representing you too. And so it's a thinking man's game. The more you think, the better leader you're going to be, the better business person you're going to be. You're certainly going to have a higher chance of survival, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. You told me something one time, Sky, when you were running KW Commercial. I was running KW Farm and Ranch years ago, isn't it? This is like probably 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And we were discussing an offensive strategy in business, and you set me down and you said certain leaders will accept different levels of risk. And you might even put it in the context of casualties. But you said some leaders will accept more casualties or take more risks than others. And what, if I remember right, you told me neither one is wrong, but you got to live with the result.
Yeah.
Neither's wrong, but you have to be able to live with the result.
Yep.
So when you're talking about an offensive strategy, how do you use your military context or that principle that you told me 7 or 8 years ago about analyzing risk? Because there is a degree of risk.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, in business, what's the one resource that you have that mitigates all risk in business?
Money.
Cash, right?
Cash, yeah,
cash in the bank.
Yeah, free cash.
So for me in business, if I'm going to take a risk, then that means I've got to have more cash in the bank, because if that risk goes poorly, if it goes the way that we don't want it to go, we still got to survive. And the game would be is, well, how quickly can we figure out if this thing's going to win or not, or lose, right? And I will just say, as a leader, you have to use your intelligence to say, is the upside just as high as the downside here? Because if the downside's more steep than the upside, then it isn't worth it. We can win lots of ball games just hitting a single up the middle every time we get up to the bat. I mean, we totally can win. Now, we're not going to win it as fast as if we just hit home runs and round the bases, but we can still win. And I think when you take the Babe Ruth approach, and you kind of set the record of the day for the most strikeouts to hit the most home runs, I mean, you just need to know that the chance of success and wildly success matches the risk. That's what I would say. But yeah, I mean, in business, if you're taking a risk, if you're me, you've got plenty of cash in the bank to survive that thing. And then it's like, well, let's take it with violence of action so that we can quickly figure out, is this thing going to succeed or fail? Because if it's going to fail, I need to turn it off as fast as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, calculate it and don't be Tim in your approach.
Yep.
Get after it.
Yep. And if it fails, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Right? So if I'm in laundry and I bunch of
mediation plan if it does fail.
Yeah. And if I'm in laundry and I bought a bunch of machines that are expensive and the location doesn't play out the way I think it's going to, what am I going to do? Right? I mean, I don't just give up. That's not give up is not an option. So what are we going to do?
Well, in business, you can't. In the military, I would assume if you were a captain in the Rangers, you had a platoon under you. Is that right?
Yep.
Yep. So as a leader, if you're leading these guys through Baghdad, hunting bad guys and kicking in doors, if you get scared and quit, man, what do?
Oh, well, they want a reason to quit.
Yeah.
I mean, I say that.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of wisdom in that right there.
Yeah.
And that's not taking anything away from those guys. And in business, it's not taking anything away from the people that work around us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of those guys didn't sign up to lose their life, right? Yeah. They signed up because they didn't have any other options. And so, when we're talking about combat, the ultimate price could be paid, right? And was paid by a lot of our heroes that we have. And so when you're the leader, you have the responsibility to win the hearts and minds of your soldiers in an effort to just get the mission done. But to do that, you have to have a strong purpose, and you got to have some influence, man. I mean, you got to have some John Maxwell leadership influence, because without that influence, your words are just going to go right past them. They're not going to listen to them.
Yeah, there's one of my favorite quotes. Because leadership's heavy, man.
Yeah.
Leadership's heavy. Not everybody signed, like real estate. 80% of the agents in real estate got into the business when?
2021? I don't know. Something like that, right?
Strongest market we've ever seen, right?
Yeah.
They didn't sign up for a recession.
No, they didn't.
They didn't sign up. Like your soldiers didn't sign up to give their life. Our real estate agents that work for us, they didn't sign up for a recession. Yeah. Our employees that work for us in our non-real estate businesses, they didn't sign up for inflation.
Yeah.
They signed up for the good things, man.
Yeah.
In real estate, these guys signed up because they wanted to be present with their kids. They wanted to have the flexibility both with income and in lifestyle to be present with their kids, present with their families. If they don't have kids, be able to travel and go ski and hunt and fish and and vacation and do these things. They didn't sign up for a real estate recession. Yeah. They didn't sign up for. They didn't think they did.
Yeah,
that's what they didn't think they did. They didn't sign up for going on, making 200 contacts to tee up every listing appointment, and going on 5 appointments to get a listing, and your average sell price when they got into the business was $1.25 million. Now it's $700,000.
Yeah, and it takes 5 times as long.
It takes 5 times as long, which is a totally different skill set. They didn't sign up for that, and so as leaders, we have to remind these people every day what they actually signed up for, and that was to provide a better life for their family. That was to earn financial freedom. That was to have the opportunity to invest. That was to have the opportunity to go on those vacations. That was to achieve their goals. That's what they signed up for.
Yeah.
They weren't signing up for the Instagram real estate job.
Yeah.
Maybe what they thought.
Yeah.
But that's not what they signed up for. And so one of my favorite quotes says, leadership is scarce because few people are willing to go through the discomfort required to lead. But when you've identified the place of discomfort, you identify the place that leadership is needed most.
Yeah.
And so I coach my agents on that every single day, especially when the market is tough, because our clients hire us to lead them through a complex process of selling a piece of property so that they can accomplish their financial goals and they can accomplish their goals for their family. And they trusted us to lead them through that process. They didn't hire us to put it on the MLS.
Yeah.
They didn't hire us to syndicate to Zillow. They didn't hire us to hang a lockbox on the door.
Yeah.
They didn't hire us to post it on. They hired us to sell the property and lead them through the process, And so that's why when we run a KPA or a personality assessment around agents, that leadership vector and their behavioral profile is pretty high for successful agents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, Casey, you just gotta remind them of that, right?
Daily.
That and
daily, not sometimes. You daily have to remind them of that.
Yeah.
And you daily get to. Somebody told me the other day, I was saying I have to go to this class. I have to get on this call. I have to go to this meeting. I have to coach this agent. And he said, you have to or you get to?
Yeah. Yeah.
As a leader, we get to.
I was going to say, what a wonderful privilege it is to take care of another human.
Isn't
right?
it?
Yeah. When chaos strikes, okay, a different part of your brain starts to operate. And some people are better at slowing everything down than others. And look, I played baseball. So again, like I have this military background, but I also played baseball where if you got 3 hits out of 10 at bats, you're an all-star.
Yeah.
Right? So which means I lost 7 out of 10 at bats, and I'm still one of the better players.
Yeah.
So I learned how to deal with loss and chaos and all of those harmful feelings and just slow it down and still see and I'm doing this for this purpose. And the purpose is going to keep me moving. And to some extent, if I've thought it through, then I know it's not reasonable to think that I'm going to get much more than 3 hits out of 10 at bats. Because I thought it through. Now I want to be excellent, and I want more than that. But it's not feasible. The best in the world, the most extraordinary people in the world that played the game didn't get that high of a batting average. And I'm normal, so I'm not those guys. And so it all makes sense. And I think the more that you can put yourself in the position to be thinking through all of that, you're going to be more steady, and you're going to remember the purpose. And maybe one other thing that we should touch on, or we will eventually when we start talking about faith a little bit, is your life isn't about you. And when you start to think it's all about you and you start to slip into that victim mentality, you get what you ask for. And but if you wake up every day, and so I believe that a true purpose, a strong purpose worth dying for, is about other people. It ain't about you. It ain't about the things that you could get. It ain't about the lifestyle you can live. It's about making other people better, or other people more whole, or leading others, right? That's a purpose worth dying for.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and when that's your purpose, yeah, you keep going because you're not going to quit on other people. Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with that.
I tell people
you said a bunch there, man. As leaders, one of the dilemmas of leaders, it's a dilemma of a leader, it's a dilemma of the innovator. There's all kind of dilemmas in life, but so many leaders read a bunch, and I think by reading, business people in general, high achievers, they read a lot, and by reading you do so much. I mean, it shows you the model, the proven model that somebody's taken before you.
Yeah.
But society today with social media and Reels and Instagram and X and all these things, man, it really celebrates the long ball. Like it celebrates the 1 out of 100. It celebrates the innovator. It celebrates the pirate. It celebrates the Hail Mary pass that wins so much that we start thinking that's actually the path to success. That the 4th and long Hail Mary is the actual path.
Yeah.
When the reality is, dude, like in football,
there's
4 downs. You need 10 yards to get a first down. 2.5 yards per carry scores a touchdown every single possession.
Yep. Yeah.
Every possession, 2.5 yards per carry.
Yeah.
So as leaders, it's so important that we can keep our team, our employees, our salespeople, also our clients. We have to keep our clients focused on the reality of a 2.5 yard possession drive when business is tough. Hey, if we have an opportunity to throw a long ball and gain a bunch of territory, dude, don't think we don't have our vision on for that. We're not looking for that. We are certainly looking for that opportunity as investors, partners in business, you and I, man, that's what I love about you is as a business partner with you, an investor in some things with you. I know you're always looking for those opportunities to go gain big ground quickly.
Yeah.
You're very tactful in that you're always looking for those opportunities to go take territory because you're a student of business and you're not playing off of the emotions of the big wins or the emotions of the tough losses. You believe in the process, and it makes, as an investor and business partner with you, it makes me confident that we're going to be steady day to day in our business. And I think we owe it to our clients to do the same thing. Show them consistency and stability as well.
Buying or selling any type of real estate asset can be confusing. Market conditions, interest rates, zoning, surveys, title and easements, minerals, tax strategy, deal structure, and investment value. Not to mention the value of your time and responsibilities in your day-to-day business. With rural farm, ranch, and land tracts, the complexities just go up. That's why our firm, the Mock Ranches Group, invests over 200 hours per year in coaching, training, and educating our agents. So you can feel confident that when you work with Mock Ranches, you're working with a licensed and trained professional who specializes in rural Texas farm and ranch land. It's why discerning buyers and sellers have trusted Mock Ranches for nearly 10 years and over $500 million in Texas land. We have offices across the state of Texas and partners across the country through our partnership with KW Land. We're just a call or an email away for a no-obligation, no-bull consultation. Our phone number is 512-275-6625 or info@mockranches.com. Go get them.
Yeah. Well, in sales, you not only have the responsibility of thinking, right?
Yeah.
Like we've already talked about, but in sales, you got to communicate to your client that you're thinking too. They need to like experience some of the thought that you're putting into it. And you casually drop vision in your, what you were just saying right there. And, vision to me is what does it look like in the end when it's done right? And vision's awesome. As a leader, you should communicate vision consistently. As a salesperson, you should communicate vision to your clients consistently of what, when it's done right, what does it look like? But the only thing that makes vision believable is the plan.
Yeah.
And so you can't plan without a vision because you need to know where you're going. And then, but as soon as you know where you're going, as soon as the vision is set, you need to backwards plan all the way to today so that it's very clear the steps that we're going to take in pursuit of that vision. And, you know, I love the old saying from Mike Tyson, you know, everybody's got a plan until I punch him in the face, right? Well, you got your plan in pursuit of your vision, but we know things aren't going to go our way every time. And so that's when the plan gets a little bit more dialed in at that point, right? And you know, I read the book The Lean Startup, and in there there's a loop that they teach, and it's a build, measure, learn loop. And so we build this plan, and in business we don't do anything unless we measure it. And then why would we measure it unless we're going to learn? And what's the worth of learning unless you're going to rebuild, right? And so you're constantly working on that plan, executing that build, measure, learn loop in pursuit of that vision. And your job is to do all that thinking. You need your client to know that you're doing all that thinking too, because otherwise they're just sitting there wondering what you're doing. Or, hey, you told me the plan was this, and now you're doing this over here. Like, you know, were you going to tell me about that? And you need to get credit. As a salesperson, you need to get credit for all of that thinking you're doing. But it does require you to communicate. Same as
the way you hire too, because basically what you just said to break that down is your job's to create a vision, and you got to go break the system. I mean, as a leader, you build, measure, learn, which means once you complete that loop, we've probably broken something in the system as we've grown, and we've got to rebuild, re-engineer the system, improve upon the system. It changes the way you hire, because that puts a lot of pressure on your staff. It's a lot of pressure on your team. And I coach quite a few small businesses that are non-real estate through the MBN with Abe Shreve. And man, that's like the dilemma, the hiring dilemma that so many entrepreneurs run into is, you know, they hire their daughter-in-law, or they hire their wife's friend, or they make a comfortable hire. They make a non-challenging, comfortable hire. It's somebody that you trust. When I go tell you to do this, that you're not going to steal from me, you're not going to rob from me, you're going to show up, you're not going to argue with me. You know, it's a comfortable hire. But and even in our team, when I think I have the very best administrative and operations team in our space, which I believe that, man, the only pushback I get is when I'm pushing to break things, and it creates tension a little bit, you know?
Well, yeah.
And I'm not breaking them for the sake of being disruptive or for being reckless. I'm not breaking things for the sake of being reckless. I'm breaking things because I know if we're not measuring and we're not rebuilding, we're sitting still. And the world moves too fast today. The world just moves way too fast. We're building a website. Trish is spearheading that right now, a brand new website. And I was actually supposed to get her edits to it today. And as I'm looking through it, you know, it's been like 3 or 4 month process to get it built. As I'm looking through it, I'm like, man, some of this stuff already feels old from when we started it.
So you're going to be a great author one day. Yeah, I mean,
learn from my mistakes. That'll be the title of the book.
Yeah, I mean, all right, let's just dissect some of this stuff. Okay. Administrative folks in general seek stability in their lives, right? They're the best friend type. You know, the one that like will sit there and actually listen to you speak.
Golden retriever, man.
Yeah.
Golden retriever.
But in their world, and actually what you're paying them to do is to solidify the foundation, to protect what we've already gained, to bring stability to the business. That is their role. That's what they want to do. And so what you're doing is you're coming to shake things up, and it's the very thing that they've worked on for so long for you, and how their mind just works in general. Well, that sounds like change to me, and it's going to create all this instability, and that doesn't feel good. And that's
instability and work.
Yeah, and work. Well, yeah, but we didn't hire people that don't want to work.
No, that's right.
Yeah, my folks are stressed out if they don't have anything to work on, so they like to work. But
Gary would call you an empire builder, and he would call your administrative team what?
Protector.
Empire protectors.
Yeah. And so
It's Mama Bear.
For them, but for
Mama
them,
Bear, man, I'm going to protect the cave right here. Don't mess with my cave and my kids.
Totally.
Yeah.
But listen, when the admin team feels disrupted, you may get away with that once or twice as a leader because you've earned their trust and their love and respect. If that's how you operate all the time, when you don't give them the why of why you're changing things up, you're going to lose them. You're going to have a rebellion on your hands. And so as leader, like you and I are very comfortable with like a hand wave and like, hey, this is where we're going. And we're like, yeah, I'll beat you there, right? I don't need to know all the details. I don't, and I actually don't even need to know what directions we're going. Like I know in the general direction where we're going, I'll run there.
Yeah, I can see that top of that hill on the horizon over there. Yeah. Don't know what's between there, and then we'll navigate that when we get there.
Yeah. And the team, they need to understand why. Why are you asking me to do all this stuff? And as soon as they get it, and it makes sense to them, and they know that it's going to bring more stability and really security to their life, they're bought in, right? And so some of our folks on our team, we just have to give more of the why. For them to feel comfortable, and then that's the rub. I mean, the other thing to look at too, if you're just really struggling, and this is what it sounds like some of your coaching clients are dealing with, is they've hired people into their organization that aren't a values match. And so if your value is to be excellent in everything you do, and then you hire someone that's just good enough, that I just want to do it good enough and be comfortable, and their value is comfortable. Like there's a rub there, right? Because you're
talking yourself into whether or not they can plug the gap today. But if you're having to, I think a lot of people do that, right? It's fair enough. I'm interviewing. I got 2-1 things. I got to run the business, and all of a sudden I've got to hire somebody too. Yeah. And hiring somebody takes a lot of time, and you interview a half dozen people that don't fit. You're kind of ready to make a hire because the job needed to be done a long time ago. So now you're talking yourself into whether or not this person can plug the gap. I think they can do it.
Yeah.
But without a vision for the future, if you want to be a championship team, and you better be hiring somebody that can plug the gap at a championship level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's okay to have a B- person on your team, but they better be in a B- role. Don't you go put a B- person in an A role, right? And we know in our business, we know what our A roles, we know what our B roles, we know what our C roles are, okay? And in fact, if you put an A player in a C role, how long do you think they stay there?
Yeah, not long.
Not long, because they're not
moving up or moving out. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not C people.
Yeah.
And so, like, I actually don't have an issue with hiring someone that you're okay with, but you better be putting them in an okay position, because it ain't going to work any other way. Either you're going to be frustrated and shame on you, or they're going to be frustrated because they can't do what you're asking them to do. No matter what, there's a breakup coming in the future, and that's all your fault, leader. That's your fault. And so you need to understand not only who you're recruiting here, like what level they are, A, B, C, D, but you also need to understand the role that you have. What level role is that? Is it A, B, C, D? And I learned this from a Harvard Business Review in school at UT here, and it was the airline industry. Believe it or not, the pilot position is a B player. Because think about it. There's a lot to do in the beginning, and there's a lot to do in the end, but there's nothing to do in between. And an A player needs something to do the whole time. So you actually need someone super capable to take off and to land, but you need someone that's not so good that they couldn't just sit there and relax, for a couple hours.
Yeah.
And so, that A players drop out of being pilots because they can't sit there and do nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So the pilot position is a B player role.
Might be your flight attendant, might be an A player.
That's what the article said, is the flight attendant is your A player.
Yeah.
And if you're running an airline business, that's who you need. And that's
all you're consumer facing is the flight attendant. Assuming the thing takes off and lands, nobody knows who the pilot was, and there was no experience other than the takeoff and landing.
Well, and who's saving the lives if we crash?
Yeah.
Right? It's the flight attendant. They're back there, patching holes and getting people off the plane. I mean, it makes sense now. But like when I read that case study, it just clicked for me. And so now when I look at positions and I look at people, love them all, right? And let's put people. Jim Collins said it in Good to Great: put the right people on the right seats in the bus, right? Like it's the same thing, just said a different way.
Well, right there too. I mean, there's probably a lot of B players, very successful business owners, as long as they hire well and they hire A players in the right roles.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, and just as soon as they start to act like a B, just kind of move out of there, right? But yeah, I mean, B again, like I tell people all the time, I was so blessed as a baseball player to never be the best until the very end of my career. Like, I got to play professional baseball, but I was never the best till the end. And you know what that meant? It meant I needed to work harder. I needed to keep putting in the hours, the sweat, the lifting, the hitting, the catching, throwing, like all the things. I need to round out my game. And if I didn't have that motivation to go do that, if I didn't have a reason to go get better, then I probably wouldn't have made it as far as I did. And I think a B player is the same way. A B player that cares like an A player, they're going to continue to they're the most coachable. They're the ones listening to you in every single word that you say. They're the ones giving the most effort because they know their effort has to make up for some of their other shortcomings. Sometimes that's the best player to have on your team is a solid B who cares, or a solid B that's a complete values match, right? Man, I'd rather have a team full of B players that all match the line with me in values and motivation, because I can work with that. You can win a lot of games with B.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah, man.
How important is faith as a steady leader, Schuyler?
Yeah, I write about faith all throughout the book. I write about it in purpose, and you gotta have purpose personally in your team and in your business. But I think that the most important part of faith that I write about is in your health. And I say, in the first section of the book, when I talk about leading yourself, we have a chapter titled Combat Ready. And in the military, when you're combat ready, essentially what it means is you've got your weapons, your ammunition, you got your water, you're ready to move out, right? You got your vehicles, your men, you're ready to move out. And to me, to be combat ready as a leader, you need to be healthy. And healthy is a 3-part equation for me. It's mental health, physical health, and spiritual health. And so I think of it as like a 4-legged stool, that you're sitting on that stool on a ship in the ocean. Just a normal sea, a little bit of a wave. Yeah, you actually could sit on a 1-legged stool and probably be fine. But as soon as that storm comes in, you better hope that you got a 4-legged stool to sit on, or else it's gonna fall out from underneath you. And I think of the health the same way. You need to be mentally healthy. You got to have a growth mindset, and you need to be feeding your mind daily growth-oriented material. Okay, so as a business owner, you never become the lid to the business, right? And you need that growth mindset to spill into others, right? So you have to be mentally strong. Physically strong means that, and I love the stoicism approach to physical strength. Are you telling your body what it's going to do, or is your body telling you what it's going to do? Is your body telling you you're tired to stay in bed, or are you waking up and saying, I'm going to work you out? And you're not only going to exercise this morning, but you're going to lift more weight than you did yesterday, right? Hey, today, body, I need to put in 10 hours, not 8, and you're going to do it, and you're going to do it well. So, is your body a liability or an asset? Who's telling who what to do? And I'll just tell you the ones that have the most discipline in life, they're telling their body what to do, right?
Yeah.
And then the third piece, that spiritual piece, is spiritual health. And if you're very young in your spiritual journey, I'll tell you real quick how you can figure out whether you're spiritually healthy or not. And that's when you wake up in the morning. Do you think about what you're going to get for yourself or all the good times that you're going to have? Or do you wake up in the morning and think about what you can do for others to help their lives be better? And if you're thinking about others right away, then you're spiritually healthy. If you think about you right away, you've got some work to do. And I think the most steady leaders out there are strong mentally, strong physically, and strong spiritually. And I would say, if you said, Schuyler, well, which one's the most important? Because I said four-legged stool, not three. I'd say faith is. I'd say spiritual strength.
Yeah.
And I think spiritual strength are two of the four legs. And the way I like to think about it is, well, if I'm not mentally strong, but I'm physically strong and spiritually strong, I'm still sitting on three legs. And that's pretty good. It's pretty stable.
Yeah.
Right? But if I'm just mentally strong, but my body is crap and I have no spiritual strength, then I'm sitting on a one-legged stool. It doesn't matter how smart you are, and it doesn't matter how many affirmations you do. It doesn't matter. You're still sitting on a one-legged stool, and when chaos strikes, when that storm brews in, you will fall. I watched the most capable soldiers in the world suffer from traumatic stress and be medically discharged from the military because they couldn't keep on going. The ones that kept going were the ones that had some mental strength, physical strength, and spiritual strength. I watched it in the most extreme environment.
Yes. Listened to a podcast with Leif Babin the other day. I shared it with you. I think it was a Sean Ryan show. Leif was on. Leif talked a lot about that in the SEAL teams, how that spiritual strength, spiritual health, faith in God, Jesus, what you and I would call it, for sure.
Yeah.
How critical that was to just surviving that harsh environment, and how some of the best SEALs, same thing you're saying about the Rangers, some of the best SEALs they worked around were not the best athletes.
No.
They were just mentally, they were athletic enough, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to be athletic enough.
Yeah, you got to pass some physical tests.
Yeah. There's some pretty heavy physical components.
But we're not all elite physically.
Right.
And so some of us just have some God-given gifts, right? Like the ability to play professional baseball. A lot of that was just a God-given gift that God gave me a 6'1" frame and let me weigh 220 pounds and still run. Like that was, my brothers didn't get that. So a lot of that physical stuff is just gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leif said the same thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't always the most elite athletes, but he said the guys that survived that mentally were tough as nails, and spiritually they had faith.
Yeah.
Spiritually they were sound. They were okay spiritually,
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think courage shows up without faith?
Oh, man. I don't know how it could.
Yeah.
I don't know how it could.
I mean, maybe for a little bit. It won't last. As I've matured, I've seen more and more how spiritual strength and faith just matter so much. I'm working on some content right now around wisdom. And, I think everybody in the world would say, well, wisdom can come from experience and then just time on this earth, right? Like the experiences you accumulated and time to just like let it season and like understand based on those experiences how life works. But when you can take those experiences, then you can add a spiritual lens to it, some spiritual context to those experiences, and then complement it with time of just studying and thinking through. That's where wisdom comes in. And, as a leader, fundamentally, you need to make decisions that are the best decisions. Not just for you and not because I'm desperate, the actual best decision.
Yeah.
And the way in life to make the best decisions is to be free of what the world wants to put on you. And the quickest way to be free of all the worldly pressures is to be spiritually strong.
We've been studying the book of 1 Corinthians, and we're just been in it for a month. We just made it to chapter 2. But Paul's letter to the church of Corinth is a corrective letter, and our pastor, he said if Paul was still alive, I think the church in America would be getting a letter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know why I love Paul? Because he says it 2 or 3 times. He tells people to man up.
Yeah, man up.
Now,
But he talks about how
the Bible is all a translation, right? So when it's translated to man up, that wasn't exactly what he was saying. He was telling everybody to, stand up and get right.
stand up and get right.
Yeah.
Well, he talks about how the world and all of its wisdom continues to mess up. The world, us, and all of our wisdom, the world and all of its wisdom crucified the Savior. The world and all of its wisdom continues to, like a dog, return to its own vomit.
Yep.
But God made foolish the wisdom of the world. And so if you want wisdom, if you want to have the ultimate lens in which to make decisions through, man, seek that wisdom which is given freely through faith.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Like all the way back to Genesis chapter 3, the first sin was man's desire to have God's wisdom. And the funny thing is, we try to go get it through our own efforts, and we try to get it through our own efforts. We try to earn it. We waste away like this tireless, never-ending desire to have what God gives freely. God says, I give wisdom freely to those who ask and pursue me. But that takes that's the humble approach to going to get wisdom, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also the easiest approach too, right, Casey? I mean, I only had to read about Solomon once before I started changing my prayer to like the first thing I asked for was.
Solomon, he could have gold, riches, women, whatever he wanted. What did he ask for?
He asked for wisdom.
Wisdom, considered the wisest man to ever live.
Yeah, and well, why not ask for it, right?
And what did he get once he had wisdom? What did he get?
Anything he wanted.
All the other things.
Yeah.
Riches,
I mean,
power, all the other things.
But he was so wise that he was free of the world, and that's another reason why you need spiritual strength as a leader. Listen, you shouldn't be so stressed out by the lack of money that you can't make the next best decision, right? Not having a bunch of cash in the bank for your business is a reality that you have to deal with. And it is stressful. I'm not saying it's not stressful. It's incredibly stressful. And unless you can rise above that, unless you can be free of the world's money, your ability to make a great decision is jeopardized. You may still make the right decision, but I can tell you that if you were more free, if you were spiritually strong, your chances of making the right decision go way up. It just goes way up. I know it because I felt it on both sides.
Well, that's because of the lack of anxiety.
Yeah.
And I get anxiety. Trust me.
Yeah.
I get anxiety. I get stress. I get worry. Bible says, do not be anxious about anything.
Yeah.
But in everything, through prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to the Lord.
Yeah.
And the peace that surpasses all understanding shall come upon you. Yeah. And so when your context changes to that, now too, it also, Paul also says in the book of 1 Corinthians, he says, the message of the cross is foolish to those who are perishing, but to those of us who are being sanctified, I should have it from a quote. Those of us being sanctified, it's the word of God. I know I butchered that second part of that. What that means is, if you're not pursuing Christ, it seems like a funny fairy tale, right?
Yeah.
You mean this guy born of a virgin died, and somebody got swallowed by a fish, and the whole world flooded, and somebody built an ark, and really? I get it. I get where some of that could sound, to man's wisdom, where some of that could sound silly. What I can tell you about my testimony is how God through the Holy Spirit has changed my life. That you can't argue with. I can tell you that God through the Holy Spirit has given me peace in very stressful situations where there was a lot more scarcity than abundance. I can tell you how God through the Holy Spirit has guided my wife and I through very challenging decisions and very challenging times with peace. With peace. And if peace is the fruit of the Spirit, and peace is what God promises us through that when we pursue him. And man, that right there, that's what you can't argue with.
Yeah.
That's what you can't argue with. And I think that's what people want during times of anxiety and times of stress and times of uncertainty. And listen, it doesn't matter how much money you have. A big business just eats more of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't relieve you of the responsibility of leading well. A lot of money in a big business doesn't relieve you as a business owner of the responsibility to generating revenue. It doesn't relieve you of the responsibility of showing up every day. It doesn't relieve you from good hires. Guess what else it doesn't do? It doesn't insulate you from health problems.
Yeah.
It doesn't insulate you from a kid that disappoints you. It doesn't insulate you from a client that disappoints you. It doesn't insulate you from the risk, the external threats, like in a SWOT assessment, the external threats that affect our business, like sickness, disease, government intervention, all these other things. It doesn't insulate you from that. Yeah. It actually compounds the problems when they hit.
Yeah. 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 Because more lives depend on you. More
lives depend on you, man.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know how you could navigate that responsibility without some belief in a higher power and without faith. And if you believe that, Gary says he doesn't know how you live if you didn't believe that you were a spiritual being having a minor physical experience. And if you believe that you are a spiritual being having a minor physical experience, that would tell me that the things that I accomplish here on this earth, man, that's not my destination.
Yeah. If you truly buy into that, you're free. And then you'll look at every situation with a spiritual lens. I mean, just listening to you talk, I mean, I've got two little things for you. One, I kind of look at emotions a little bit differently now. So let's just use anxiety because that was the word that you said.
Now, since the military service or what?
Yeah, I think combat and then working on myself, because I went through some trauma and I had to deal with, some combat stress there. And, and then, part of it's just spiritual journey, right? Like,
sure.
Letting the iron sharpen.
Growth and sanctification and maturity, man.
Yeah. And so when I have a feeling now, anxiety doesn't feel good, right? You're not proud of that.
Yeah.
Now, I flip that on its head, and when I have a little bit of anxiety, I take a pause and I say, you know what? Thank you, Jesus, for the anxiety. Clearly, there's something I haven't taken care of.
Yeah, bingo.
And so I take a step back and I say, okay, I'm about to walk into this sales appointment, and I'm anxious about it. And if I look at this with a critical eye, what it's telling me is I'm not fully prepared. So why don't I go get prepared so that I don't have to be anxious about this, right? And so when you have a plan or you're prepared, more times than not, that anxiety goes away, at least in that scenario, right? But I stop beating myself up over those feelings. I appreciate those feelings, and then logically I let them inform me on something, or I put that feeling in its place, right? So when I drive my vehicle, to this day, I still think about roadside bombs, and I'm a little tense while I'm driving. Okay, look, thank you for the anxiety while I'm driving. There's not a chance that I'm going to let somebody blow me up on the side of the road. I'm grateful for that. And in reality, am I going to see anything like that today? No. So I'm going to put that feeling in its place. I don't need to be worried about that. I'm grateful for it because it's keeping me vigilant as a driver. And you know what? I don't need it. Thank you. It's gone. So I try to put it in its place. The only other thing that I'll say that being spiritually strong allows you to do too is, and I use this all the time with my children, but I think, if you can teach something to your children, then all of us adults ought to use it too. But when we look at problems, we use one of two scripts with them. Is that a big problem or a small problem, right? Yeah. More times than not, it's a small problem, and that helps us work through it. But the other thing that I'll do is I'll say, hey, are you looking through your worldly eyes or your spiritual eyes? And so, I have a daughter right? That's reaching that age where she's very aware that boys are looking at her, and she wants to, she wants to look good and all these things, right? It's natural, right? We all grew up at one point. And sometimes there'll be some thoughts that beat her down more than they ought to. And I'll say, sweetheart, are you looking at this situation with your worldly eyes or your spiritual eyes? If you were looking at this with your spiritual eyes, what would you tell yourself right now in this moment? And then I just let her talk, because sometimes when you look at a problem, all you really have to do is just change your perspective on it. Yeah. And then you're more equipped to solve that problem. And so if we're having anxiety from money, really what you said was, I'm going to look at this from a different perspective, right? How much does that money really matter if I'm living a minor physical experience here? All right. That'll bring me peace. Just the minimizing of that problem alone will bring me more peace. Hey, I'm still on this earth today. I need to figure out this cash situation. Let me peacefully put together a plan to address this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, when I talk about anxiety too, like, understand, I know there's clinical depression, and I'm not talking about people that are sick. It's not a sin or a weakness to be sick. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about really our self-generated anxieties, which I was reading a book last week about this, and it said that 90, I don't remember the exact percentage. It was over 95% of our anxieties come from things that are undone. Mm-hmm. That are following us around, and we're dragging them around, but it feels like they're chasing us, and you can't get away from them. And if we just turn around and go address the source, man, it goes away. Yeah, it goes away. How much stress have you had? How much stress have you had around a conversation that you need to have with an employee or a client, and you avoid that for a week? It turns into a month, turns into 2 or 3 months. And it's festering, and you hadn't had the conversation. Yeah. More times than not, when you go have it, it's not as bad as you thought it was going to be. No, well, but it dang sure would have been a lot easier to have it when it first needed to be had, instead of letting it chase you around for a month. So much of our anxieties deal with undone things that if we would just go face the problem, we put that to bed. Or you plan a course of action to go address it. At least now you have confidence in the course of action instead of fear of the unknown. And I think so much of that anxiety is around, fear of the unknown. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's what your body's telling you. It's like, hey, dude, we need to survive this. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, you need to be afraid right now. I mean, and so your body's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. But you got to use your intelligence to say, okay, well, how do I take control of this situation? What action can I take to at least gather more information, even if I don't kill the problem altogether? Right?
Yeah, intelligence, and I think, it's so important to have a tribe around you of people that have a team around you of people that are going to support you and help you through those situations. Dude, I mean, there's been times I've called you where I've got a decision to make that I maybe am not confident enough making by myself. Whether I don't have the context to make it, don't have the experience to make it, don't have the strength to make it. Yeah. I think everybody can relate to that. And if you've got a tribe of people around you, you've got mentors, you've got brothers and sisters around you that are equally yoked spiritually, people that are leading you in the right direction, man, load one of them up and go tackle that thing together. I tell my agents all the time that on your big listing presentations, why would you ever go alone? Why would you ever go into that situation outnumbered? Not that it's a competition with clients, it's certainly not. But it allows you confidence and context that you can discuss the numbers and not fear missing somebody, because you got somebody covering for you. Yeah. It's cover and fire, cover and move, cover and move, cover and move.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I mean, why would you? I mean, if you get, especially in our business and sales, so many times we have the option to stack it in our favor if we wanted to. So why not do that? Yeah, I write about planning in the book, and Another gift that the military gave me was to plan as if my life depended on it, right? Like, because when I went on these patrols, if I had a poor plan, I could lose my life or lose a soldier's life.
Yeah.
And, I know I'm not planning as if my life depends on it today, but I'm still bringing that intensity to it. And so what
You're
if
planning as if your lifestyle depends on it?
That's right.
I mean,
but there's
your
no
kids go to private school and you've got a ranch and you like to do things and you invest. And
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you don't plan well, you could lose those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to, as a dad, you come home and tell your kids, hey, guess what? I know you like your school. I'm not going there next semester.
Yeah. Well, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
I'd end up getting divorced too, probably.
Yeah.
I'd lose it all.
Yeah. Speaking of that, you recently became a ranch owner, Texas ranch owner.
Yes, I'm a proud ranch owner. Dream come true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Man, some of my fondest memories growing up with my father and my brothers were just going on these hunting trips. I grew up in a coastal town, so I was spoiled a little bit by going out on the water and fishing. I mean, we fished 3 times a week, and that actually, it's special to me now because I don't get to do it all the time now. Like I'm in Austin, Texas, so and when you catch a bass, you kind of most of the time reel it in on top of the water, so it's a little different. But
yeah.
but those trips out to the hunting camp, they mattered a lot. And then I went into the military where a lot of our training was in the woods. And when I got out of the military, I've already said this once, but I had some things I had to take care of on the inside. And one of the things that I was tabling was nature. And the story I was telling myself was, I've had enough nature in my life. I don't need this. And in reality, some of the times that I'm closest to God, we're out there in the woods when I'm by myself and just experiencing God's creation. And so I wised up and started to have this feeling or this desire to get back into the woods. And it became a goal and to have a ranch, and we achieved that goal. And now, now my parents have a place out there. So, they watch over it for me, and they got all the animals, and they got the bees, and they got the cows romping around out there. And I mean, they're having a good old time. And you will go out there as much as we can. I mean, and again, like, my kids don't know a life without a ranch. So, I sure hope that they don't take it for granted, but they're going to grow up in a world that's very connected digitally. My kids are going to grow up with a ranch experience, and that's manufactured by their parents. Like, Kristen and I intentionally put time on the calendar to go out there so that I can take them out into the woods and teach them about the woods and make sure that they understand that God created all this. And not only should we disconnect digitally and kind of appreciate the health that comes from nature, but we need to be in awe of what was created for us. And man, there's no better place to be in awe than the land, that your team helped.
Man, I agree with that. Couldn't agree with that more. And it's just a glimpse, dude. The things I love, I've been to some of the most beautiful places hunting, and I get to take my family now that my kids are old enough to go. We were in Wyoming twice last year hunting elk. Mm-hmm. I go every summer and ride horses up on the Continental Divide. We usually go on 3 hunting trips a year, and then, we do own some ranch country too, and then my wife's family does. Similar to you, I grew up just so much of my time was spent outdoors, and as good as that is, man, it's just a glimpse of what God's prepared for us. It's just a glimpse.
That's right.
It's just can't imagine. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell
you. How do we order the book, Schuyler? Steady Leader. When's it come out, and how do we order it?
Well, we're printing it in March. Okay. You can find it if you just go to my website, SchuylerWilliamson.com. You can see all of what we're doing in our businesses and everything, but you can also find the book there. But we also have the book at thesteadyleader.com.
Okay.
And
I'll put links to that in our show notes. And anytime I put this on social, we'll share that also.
Perfect. And I'll just say, follow me on LinkedIn or X. If you're not a big reader, I am. And I journal in the morning, every single morning. And the notes that I take from the books that I'm reading, I post them on LinkedIn and X every single morning. So if you just want my cliff notes from what I'm reading every morning, you can get the Reader's Digest version of it. And like, I don't know who's going to go pick up a brain book and read it. I'm reading the brain book right now. And so rather than getting through the 350 pages of brain book, you can just get my 5 or 6 posts that summarize it all and just, run with it.
The yellow version, the brain book for dummies.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the one I need. Schuyler, thanks for coming on, buddy. Love you. Proud to know you.
Love you too, bud.
And I appreciate you spending an hour and a half with us.
Yeah, you got it. Just
bye, everybody.
Bye.
We'll post everything in the show notes. Thanks for listening.